Greetings, members, one and all of the Salivation Nation. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen wants to fully eliminate the debt. Ceiling. That's pretty much all that needs to be said. We can pretty much infer from that our politicians and our government really wants no constraints on spending and going further into debt, racking up those numbers with deficit spending here in the United States. And they probably feel pretty empowered these days because not a lot of people really care or notice. You know, the national debt pushing $29 trillion now is just a number on a screen. You know, there was a time where it did matter, but these days the number is so large, it's inconceivable. We know that it's literally gotten so large, there's no way that our great-grandchildren could ever pay it back under current circumstances. The interest on it is astronomical, and there's so much wasteful spending, not only in this bill, that this $3.5 trillion bill, which is just a portion of it. Essentially, they're saying it's over $5 trillion. No constraints. They want no constraints. Several members of the community have pointed me to a headline here from the Washington Examiner that talks about this. We're going to look through this, that the White House is actually leaving the door open for the full elimination of the debt ceiling. You know, and just in retrospect, we look at this as a bipartisan problem. Both parties have done it. I've been very vocal about this on my channel for quite some time, that this is something that both Republicans and Democrats have fed the beast on. The beast of debt, the beast of burden, as it were, will continue to plague us. And I have some thoughts and notions and theories as to why they're becoming even more bold about it. And it is not just because they are Keynesian Democrats or, these big spenders, because we know this has been happening for quite some time. In fact, as a point of reference, during the Reagan administration, Congress raised the debt ceiling 11 times. 11 times. Now, it was a Democratic Congress, but we had a Republican president during the time. Nonetheless, fast forward here to 2021, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki suggested that President Joe Biden might back Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen's endorsement of eliminating the debt ceiling entirely to avoid future credit crisis. And think about that, credit crisis. Why should we even be going down that trail? Well, because they want to spend beyond their means, and they always have done that, and will continue to do that. Is what Congress does. When asked at her Friday briefing if Biden agreed with Yellen's comments, Psaki said that the administration's current focus for the next 17 days is getting the debt limit raised in the Senate. That's what we're working towards, she continued. There's plenty of time after that to discuss what the path forward looks like. Congress introduced a bill in May that would eliminate the debt ceiling, but the White House has not issued a statement of administration policy endorsing it yet. Yellen, testifying on the Hill on Thursday, supported the action. And she was the former Fed chair, you may remember, under the Obama administration. Yes, I would, she said in response to a question from Representative Sean Casten, an Illinois Democrat, on the subject. If, to finance those spending and tax decisions, it's necessary to issue additional debt, I believe it's very disruptive to put the president and myself, the Treasury Secretary, in a situation where we might be unable to pay the bills that result from those past decisions. Well, I don't know. We don't want to disrupt the Treasury Secretary, and we don't want to disrupt the president in order to bring us further into debt. God forbid that we spend within our means. Most of us, if you look at the terms of your credit card, statement, there is a debt limit there. Most of us very rarely ask for that to be increased so that we can continue to add more debt and more interest to our credit cards. We live within our means. We have to. We max out our credit cards. That's it. You can't go any higher. It's rare that it is increased, at least by us asking for it. Now, there are times where if you update your income, well, they say, okay, you've updated your income, we're going to go ahead and increase your debt limit. But who among us would be foolish to say, okay, we've got an increased debt limit, let's go ahead and max that credit card out, even if our wages have gone up a bit? No, it would be foolish to do. But government is a different situation, right? That's what they say. We need these programs, we need all of this. Berkshire Hathaway CEO Warren Buffett also endorsed eliminating the debt ceiling during negotiations on the topic in 2011. Go figure. Warren Buffett did that. Pretty crazy. But nonetheless, he stated in an investor call that allowing a U.S. credit default would probably be the most asinine act that Congress has ever performed. Think about that. He's saying that that allowing U.S. credit default would be the most asinine act that Congress has ever performed. Having a debt ceiling to start with is a mistake. How about, Warren, like you being somebody who's a smart investor, somebody who has done very well for himself, the things that you need for your life or whatever, you haven't needed a debt limit because you can just pay for anything you want right out of cash. But he believes in big government and doesn't care about the all of that going to your children or grandchildren, which by the way, I look at that situation as like, as an analogy that we're passing this debt down to our great-grandchildren or what have you. But you know what? That no longer is a phrase used because sooner or later something's got to give somewhere. And how will it give? Well, I'll more about that here as we continue in this article. I'll tell you some of my theories behind it and why they're ramping up this. It seems like such a waste of time for a country that's got a lot of things to do. Yes, a sure thing. A country that has a lot of things to do by spending money, by controlling us, by wasteful spending, and essentially becoming larger and bigger and more intrusive and a behemoth. It's crazy. He goes on, I'd love to see them eliminate the idea because it results in these periodic stalemate operations where everybody uses it for posturing purposes. Well, he is right about that. They can kind of use that as posturing purposes. Both sides have done it. But God forbid we have any constraints on our monetary system at all. By the way, in a way, raising the debt ceiling, does it really even matter at this point? Because the Fed just continues printing money like it's going out of style. That's really essentially the bottom line. Because if you can't raise a debt ceiling, well, hey, you can just have it get through the back channels, through the Federal Reserve System. So there is where that is. And the thing is they're very emboldened these days to continue with these debt instruments that you see before you here, these dollar bills, which are continually being devalued each year. And, we're wanting to raise the debt limit and continue spending above and beyond our means in a point where we are literally on the precipice of hyperinflation. And I believe that if this debt ceiling gets raised, even through a congressional codification, I believe still that we are at the beginning of getting closer to a hyperinflationary state. And it's already a big problem here in the United States. And the problem is that it's a problem here, it's a problem everywhere. So sooner or later, there's got to be some constraints. There's got to be some holds on this. And that's where silver and gold come into play. And at the time of recording of this video, it becomes a more difficult case to make for gold and silver to constrain anyone on anything because their prices are going down. They're going down. Now, as of the recording of this video, we've seen a little bit of a snapback for silver, but regardless, the prices are down for gold and silver from their all-time highs. Well, gold's all-time high last year, and silver's all-time high around 2011. And they continue to fall. And of course, some people theorize and speculate reasons behind that. But regardless, these metals don't seem to be performing the way we think they should. And so therefore people abandon them, because they think, well, hey, they're not really doing what people say. They're not preserving our wealth, especially if you calculate it from 2011 for silver and 2020 for gold. What gives here? Well, there's a lot of different factors that are at play there. But when you go back into this notion of spending these debt instruments, these currency, this paper, this cotton and fiber note here by the United States government is a note that is legal tender for all debts, public and private, with emphasis on public, by the way, because if they want to continue to increase it, they need to embolden that text right there. And they know that these Keynesian politicians that believe in spending and believe in injecting liquidity into the markets and into our pockets, or, well, the pockets of corporations and the like, but even for us, for individuals, about between over 45% of the population doesn't pay taxes to the federal government at all. And they're getting more out of this. So it's in their best interest, so to speak, for this spending to happen, because they would, quote, benefit from it. But really no one benefits, because the value of this dollar is falling at a rapid rate per year. Best estimates are that when the inflation numbers come out, and they're saying that, hey, we might be able to rein this into 4%, which is still double what their target is. But that's based off of year-over-year inflation. I believe it's going to be higher and climb from there based off of year-over-year when the next set of data come out. We shall see. It's frustrating because eliminating the debt ceiling means that they are pulling out all the stops for spending and getting their agenda through, because more than likely what's going to be happening is the dollar is going to be reset. And so they can make these changes now, implement all these big government policies, because they are in the midst of resetting the dollar and resetting maybe global currencies, the global reset, the great reset they call it. And just as with these big spending measures that you see, if you look at that bill, that $3.5 trillion bill, plus the other infrastructure package, the $5 trillion plus bills and pieces of legislation, all wrangled through all of that, are social justice policies, policies that essentially punish, policies that advance agendas, social engineering, all of that sort of stuff. They favor unions, and we call it waste, fraud, and abuse, with emphasis on fraud and emphasis on abuse. They're not wasting. Well, we see it as a waste, but they see it as targeted social engineering using our monetary policy. And by the way, Janet Yellen has been pretty verbal about that with some of her, when she became the Treasury Secretary, on what she thinks that our monetary policy should be make up of all of these different things in terms of social engineering, political agendas, and the like. And that should not be what the Fed does, and it's not should be what the Treasury does. But nonetheless, that's what they want to do, and they're taking advantage of the situation. They're taking advantage of the potential resetting of this dollar, because the dollar as we know it is on the tail end of existence. And I don't believe it's going to fully crash. I believe it will be reset. But they're going to push the limits of it on the brink of crashing so that they can get all they can out of it. So that when everything is revalued, well, it won't seem like it's a big deal when it's revalued. That'll be the great reset. and reset everything with all of this legislation in place and all of these policies and all of this spending in place under a new dollar, whatever that new dollar is going to be. Although we know for sure that that new dollar is going to be based off of some sort of a ledger, digital ledger technology, like a blockchain, and which means that it will be tracking your every move. And by the way, they'll be able to do that thing much more easily when they talk about any transactions being tracked through the IRS, through bank accounts of $600 or more. And which means that they will be able to capture a lot of revenue that they may, quote, miss and what have you, much more control, which that leaves gold and silver being that which cannot be tracked in and of itself, the metals that they are, a much more attractive option for those of us who believe in having God's money, something that can't be tracked, something that can be used, which means that the price really does not matter. It just does not matter what the price of these things are. And in a sense, because they are so low these days, that makes them more attractive for those of us who have the foresight to see what's going to be coming if things continue at the pace that they are with what they want to do. It's very transparent what these politicians want to do, and there are Democrats mostly, but some Republicans as well. And it's really a crying shame that that move we take ramping up at a fast pace, but even at a slow pace. And so therefore, this is why I believe in gold and silver. And I hope you do as well. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Man, wouldn't it be nice if we could have stopped, if we could have stopped this title where it is at the beginning, that Janet Yellen wants to fully eliminate the debt? But no, she wants to fully eliminate the debt ceiling. Go figure. A multitude of gratitude to you all. I want to extend this multitude of gratitude and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.